everyone. I'm TJ Montserrat, or you can I'm Tony John Keith Montserrat, or you guys can call me TJ. And I'll be talking about state of web, making the web a fire. So I'm a Google Developer Group Philippines Community Manager and a Google Developer expert on the web. And I'm also the assistant professor in University of the Philippines, Los Baños. So sorry for this that it's just a video. I cannot be there as of the moment, but hopefully you can still learn from what I want to share to you about the web. So first things first, you guys can have a copy of this slides by taking a picture of the QR code or going to this site, um, State of Web 18 TJMONSI. So without further ado, I would start giving my talk. Now, um, so what is web? The web is actually the thing that we use right now, of course, for surfing. And what we really need right now is to make it a fire or burning in a sense. But what does it mean by making it a fire? It actually means that we need it to be accessible, fast, integrated, reliable, and engaging. So here's the thing. Yeah, it's a fire. Accessible, fast, integrated, reliable, and engaging. And we need it because we owe it to our users, the users who or our clients that sort of uses our websites or web apps to do their stuff online. And these are also the people who give us money. So that's the thing. We owe it to them. So right now we have a lot of users already um, doing or using mobile mobile phones to access the web. And aside from that, there's an increase of users who are using mobile screen readers. That means a lot of people are already, or a lot of people with disabilities are already using screen readers to help them surf the web. And that means they are using computers who can understand, or which can understand the content. And the other is that a lot of us are still um, subscribed to lower tiered speed. That means just 1 to 3 megabits per second, which is unfortunate for us. So that means we are still living in the slow world in a sense. And aside from that, mobile phones are not really sort of fast. Like, not all of us are using iPhone X or the latest Pixel phone, or even the latest Samsung. So the thing here is that we are um, we are accessing sites on phones that are slower than our development machines. And most of our production sites that we deploy are still in HTTP. And aside from those things that I've talked about, we also have to think about what kind of tools or stack that we need to use to deploy it. And all of this, plus the user's expectations for us, um, mean that we um, have problems. And this is what we are having right now. Actually, right now I'm having this because of the many work that I have to do. But actually, when you think about it, when you're going to develop websites, we only have to think about these things: the ability to structure, package, um, deliver, and execute our content, our styles, and interactivity on our users' browsers. So for that, to help us really focus on what matters, we need best practices in developing a website. And one of them is making it accessible, is to have proper HTML usage. This is one of my pet peeves on web developers as of the moment, because we have forgotten already how to use proper HTML, and we just use like div for buttons and span for titles and headers. And there's a lot of tags there for us to help the computers understand, so that the computers can help other people who cannot see our website clearly, or if they are having problems. So the thing here is that we have header, we have aside, we have footer. The aside is good for sidebars, the block quotes, we have quotations, emphasis instead of italicized, we have strong instead of bold. It gives it gives meaning to our content, and we have forgotten how to use them. So if if you want our site to be accessible, we have to use these tags, or else we just double our time for coding. The other thing is, of course, thinking design responsive, the ability to code once and deploy it to many different devices. Now, I think we already know this in terms of design, and I will not delve further on how to do it. So the next is making it fast, and the thing that I really wanted to emphasize in this one is that we have to load only the critical small things that you need for the site to um, have content, or to show up on the user screen. The thing is, the goal of this is to have the users do what they need, which is to see the content and interact with it. So my rule of thumb here is that critical assets should only be in one HTML only. That means the styles are in there and a little bit of JavaScript. Now, if um, if it's a single page application, you have your JavaScript uh, also as another um, something that to be loaded. Now, on including CSS in HTML, I will discuss about it later. It should not be in a separate file. The next thing here is, of course, load only the images that will show up on screen, and optimize, minify, bundle, and compress all files. You have gzip, you have um, JPEG, which is better than PNG, SVG, which is better than, of course, PNG with transparency, and all of those things. You need to optimize, minify, and bundle. Now, the reason for having the CSS loaded as part of the HTML rather than a separate file is because we don't want to block the rendering of the content. Content is still king, and if we block the rendering, we frustrate our users. So first is, don't block the rendering and don't hog the JavaScript thread. Now, blocking the rendering happens because once you get the HTML, and once they see there's a link rel style sheet and script src on the head, it stops this part, this whole thing. Um, it stops the rendering of the page, and it has to get the CSS, and then um, parse the CSS, and then after that it has to get the JavaScript, parse and execute the JavaScript until it will render the page, and that will take a lot of time if you are on a slow network, and getting additional files before it renders the page. So you have to think about how it does this. The next is that when you hog the thread, this happens. You have your site already loaded, which is good. The first contentful paint is there, but you cannot interact with it because the JavaScript is hugging the thread, or the JavaScript is still slow or still being loaded on your phone. And it sort of creates a laggy experience. So um, the thing with this is that having a JavaScript running on the main thread for too long frustrates users. So you have, if you have a JavaScript function that is hogging the thread, consider using web workers. Next is, of course, only load others when needed. So that means you don't load the whole jQuery or the whole other pages of, if you are using a single page application, other component pages um, on the first load. You only load them when the user interacts with your site. And if you forget about it, or if you forgot about it, you just try to remember this pattern, which is called purple pattern or PRPL. That means you just push the code that is the minimal code for the initial route, render that route as fast as you can, pre-cache using service workers, and lazy load, meaning load it later when it's needed once the user interacts with it. Now, making it integrated and reliable, it all starts with making it secure, which means you have to use HTTPS. Now, before, HTTPS is a bit costly because you need to like go and sort of register an SSL and verify it like using VeriSign or something, and that's um, costing um, much for a starting developer. But you have alternatives like Firebase, or even just go to let'sencrypt.org and then following the procedures there, and you can get a verified SSL for you to use for your um, HTTPS. And once your site is secured, you can create an offline experience, because that's the basic requirement. You need to run it on an HTTPS HTTPS enabled server. Now the thing is, you have your web app install. You have your manifest JSON to allow users to install it on their phones, or install the web app in your phones, and of course having the service worker PWA creating a progressive web app for an offline experience. Now, making it engaging, there's a lot of things that you can there's a lot of functionalities in the browsers that will help you make it engaging, and there's also a lot of other technologies as well, and one of those technologies is the ability to cache and make it load the content really fast. Now, if you are using CMS, you can uh, think about using AMP, or accelerated mobile pages, which allows you to use AMP HTML, AMP JS, and custom styling. Actually, it's just sort of an opinionated best practices um, kind of toolkit that sort of, in essence, force you to use the best practices for um, making sure that your site loads fast enough, even on slow networks. And that works because of the global um, cache, or global AMP cache, that is littered around the world, which houses the content served by your site. Um, the next is web components, which are my favorite. Um, it allows you to create like customized tags that has its own behavior, like this one, image carousel, and then it creates this beautiful small piece of work where you can change the images inside depending on, of course, these buttons, but it's just a tag in itself. Now, other web standard APIs, we have the geolocation API that allows you to use your user's location for other purposes that they might need. The next is Web Payments API, which allows us developers to use the browser's payment portal system without us thinking about how what do I mean with without us thinking about creating forms for our users. Um, the next is Media Capture and Streaming API, which allows us to use the device camera for, let's say, purposes of scanning or scanning QR codes, scanning barcodes, or reading this sort of book and OCRs, sending it to, let's say, a machine learning um, enabled server, and sort of so on and so forth. The next is web push notifications, which allows um, the developers or even the servers to notify the user using, let's say, the device's notification system. Now, if we have forgotten, let's say, a few of the practices along the way because we are in the midst of the deadline, there are tools of the trade that allows us to make sure that our site is in tip-top shape. And of course, one of them is Chrome DevTools. You have your network tab, your performance, your security, your audits, which is, speaking of audits, it's the Lighthouse auditing system that allows you to check if your site is fast enough for the users, or if it would have problems in um, in their browsing experience. Next is webpagetest.org, which allows remote testing. Let's say if you want to test your loading your site from a different country, you can use it. And Sauce Labs, which is my favorite, which allows to access the website using a different browser that is not installed in your computer, so you can check if they have problems on Safari, even if you are running your development machine on Linux or Windows. Now, in practice, um, when doing these things, I actually did it when I created this IO18 extended site for GDG Philippines, and it's purely built from web components. And my inspiration is actually from the DevFest site that I also created for DevFest site last year. And what I wanted to have is to follow the 50 kilobyte um, size of a single page application, which was shown in the Polymer Summit 2017. The thing is, the DevFest site is about 200 kilobytes big, or 250 kilobytes. So I was thinking, how can this be done? Because let's say Redux, no, I mean React and Angular is around 100 kilobytes, just the library. So so I was thinking, can this be done, like the 50 kilobytes thing? And what I did was to create my own library based on Polymer, which is Element Lite, and also have my own architecture or framework in essence for creating websites, which is called a single page application Lite. And the results, you can find it here when run on an emulated Nexus 5X phone on a simulated fast 3G network. These are the scores. My performance is still low, but the progressive web app, it sort of, it did install, but it wasn't detected by Lighthouse, because as you can see, so we have already reported it. But yeah, the other thing is, if no emulation is done, it's all 100%, except for the best practices, because my browser at the time was only loading HTTP 1 and I couldn't change the settings. uh, so the other thing is web page performance test. Yeah, webpagetest.org, and you can see also here the score that I have um, for it. And here is the example of, or not really example. These are the JavaScript that has been loaded. It's still not one because I was using Webpack and it's loading. This is the core, which is the one JS file that I need, and these are the sort of parts of the pages that are being loaded at the same time. And all in all, it's around 32.8 kilobytes. So in essence, because of the best practices that I did, that I've shown you um, just now, I was able to create a site that is like 32.8 kilobytes, only the JavaScript. And if you add the content, it's about, which is the JSON files and the Markdown files, that's 49.2. And if there are other files in it, there's this another page for the um, Manila venue, and it has more JSON files in it, and it's just 63.4. Now, if I have images in it for the mobile phone, it's just 46.1. So in essence, I I was able to create a site that is less than 50 kilobytes, and it's possible to have a single page application that is a bit more um, complicated in essence, but still loads it on less than 50 kilobytes. Now, to recap, the thing is, we owe it. We wanted to have our sites really be really fast, because the thing is, people need it, and that with these tools that we have here, and of course these also, uh, we need it because want our users are well, our users really need to have our sites accessible, fast, integrated, reliable, and engaging, because we owe it to them. And so, um, this is the end of my talk. I hope you have learned something out of it. If you want to know more, or if you want to like subscribe to tutorials, I will be creating a tutorial in about the late July or early August on how to build a single page application using web components only and Firebase. You can go to the subscription, or and send your email. Just take note that the email that you will be sending will only be used by me to send uh, to send um, any news about tutorials. Now, if you don't want to send, or just want to like follow me on my channels, you can do so by via Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, Medium, and YouTube. Now, just take note, for those gamers out there, the Twitch one, you might see that I'm also putting here the games that I'm playing. So it's currently Arma. So don't be surprised that it's not yet streaming um, web development tutorials as of the moment. Now, if you have questions, just go DM me or PM me on these channels. Now, again, thanks and have a good day.